This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer.
What's Working with Cam Marston is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer. Stella Artois is a perfect beer for celebration. Nothing caps off a big sale, hitting your incentive goals, or a profitable quarter like a round of Stellas. Brewed first in 1708 as a special Christmas brew, today Stella is a gift for everyone to enjoy year-round. Stella Artois. Find it wherever fine beer is sold.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the show designed to bring you the trends influencing the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace in the hopes that our guests will say something or give you some sort of insight that will make you better in the trends influencing your own workplace, workforce, or marketplace. We find the guests that can talk about these things in such a way that'll make you and me just a little bit better at whatever it is that we do. And today we're going to talk about dominating a niche market, really owning the niche market. And these niche markets, as we'll soon hear when I get my guests in the studio with me, these niche markets can sound corny. And I'm using my guest term for this. They can sound uninteresting, corny, small. But what we'll learn is that these niche markets, who may look and sound a little bit different, are great opportunities to expand a business, great opportunities to dominate these places and become the go-to source for all content in these niche markets. What is that market? The elevator industry. My guest will be T. Bruce MacKinnon. He runs Elevator World magazine, and we're going to learn that this is not one magazine, it's magazines all over the world and the affiliated products and services that come from this magazine. So I know you're asking, hey, Cam, are we really going to spend an entire show talking about elevators? Not exactly. We're going to spend a great part of the show talking about how he found, it's actually a family business, how his family found this niche market and how he has worked to really become the main influencer in this elevator market all over the world. It includes, obviously, elevators, but also cargo elevators and escalators and people movers is what I think they're called. You go to the airport and you stand on it and it just takes you down the concourse, all of which comes under the banner of, quote unquote, elevators. His mother is involved in the business. He's involved in the business. He's got two daughters that he mentions towards the end of our conversation that he hopes will be involved in the business. And again, is the show about elevators? No, it's about dominating a niche market, something that I think we all would treasure if we could do so. T. Bruce goes by the name T. Bruce MacKinnon also has begun Bay Business News. And it was begun out of his need, his desire to know what was going on around here. It has exploded in growth and popularity. He's suddenly selling advertisement on it. I don't think it's a big profit center for us. He's not going to be afraid to say that. But he has, once again, identified. He's got the golden touch for niche markets, and that will be a great conversation that we will begin with him shortly. Now, he's a perfect segue into the conversation about the upcoming event that we're hosting here. His is a family business. His mother's in it. He's in it. He wants his children perhaps someday in it who are interesting. His children, his daughters are doing something fascinating, which we'll talk about later. And it leads me to the conversation of succession planning. If you're a leader in the business and are wondering how to transfer out, if you're the next generation, if you're the heir apparent in the business and are wondering how to kind of gain a foothold and begin your leadership of the organization, then I want you to put this date on your calendar, November the 4th at 4 p.m. We are going to hold a succession planning workshop. I will be leading a short part of the conversation about preparing yourself emotionally to leave the business. We know that many business leaders consider their business their child, their most important child. And it's a difficult transition out when you leave that child behind. Bob Jones is a recently retired CEO of United Bank in Atmore. He's going to talk a little bit about his succession out of United Bank, or his transition out of it, and what he learned in the process. So we will have a case study in front of us. Rick Miller runs a company, Pro 356 Consulting. He is a succession planning coach. He works with both the leaders who are transitioning out as well as the heir apparent who's transitioning into the leadership role. And he's going to give us some insight into his coaching processes and things that you should know as you begin this transition. And batting cleanup, I think the way we've scheduled it, will be Mark Salyers and Jamie Sandifer with Sandifer Wealth Management. They're going to be talking about the financial components of this and how you can do it and what you need to think about if you're the one transferring out of the business. So, again, November the 4th, doors open at 4 p.m. 4:30 to 5:30 will be the content, and 5:30 will be the reception. It will be held at the Community Foundation of South Alabama, a beautiful new building. Beautiful. We've scoped it out. Beautiful new building. You'll want to see this. Ample room, ample parking. The reception will be on the deck upstairs, assuming the weather works out for us. November the 4th. Content starts at 4:30. You need to RSVP, and to do so, email me directly at cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. Again, cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com, and we'll take care of your RSVP. When we come back, I'll have T. Bruce MacKinnon on the line, Elevator World Magazine, Bay Business News, dominating niche markets. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, coming right back.
Cool thing happened back in '64. That's when Keith Air Conditioning opened their doors.
In my family, turn to the experts is more than a tagline. It's a promise. Every Keith technician is an experienced AC professional, and that saves you money. Speaking of money, how about 0% financing for up to 60 months on installations of new Carrier systems? Keith and Carrier, turn to the experts.
Mobile's leading name in comfort since 1964.
License number 83731.
T. Bruce MacKinnon is the CEO and president of Elevator World Magazine, based here in Mobile, Alabama. And as we go through the show, I'll be delivering you content about what this magazine is and how remarkable it is to have such a worldwide influential publication published right here in our hometown. You've probably driven by their offices and never even known. T, thank you for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Thanks, Cam. Glad to be here.
Tell me a little bit about Elevator World Magazine, how it got started, and how you got involved in it.
Well, my grandfather, William Sturgeon, started Elevator World in 1953, and that was basically because he had joined Mobile Elevator Company, which was his father-in-law's elevator company, and worked in the elevator business right after the war, and learned the business. Didn't care too much about elevators, but learned the business, and from that point realized there was no publication, really a lack of communication among companies and individuals. And after 6 or 7 years of working with Mobile Elevator, he started Elevator World.
So he had an idea, a vision that there would be a publication to serve the industry. Did he do his market research and say there isn't one out there, or the one that's available is poorly done and I can overtake it?
No, there was not a trade publication. I think there really weren't even any associations or meetings of such. He created many associations and gatherings and meetings to bring the industry together. He had a communication background from the military, so that was kind of his mindset, kind of a dynamic communication person, and so I felt like he felt like it would just bring value to the industry, and he launched it in his house with his wife and my mother.
And it is now. Give me circulation numbers now.
So Elevator World Global, which is our monthly publication, averages about 150 pages print per month, which is about 10,000 worldwide. Of course, we have 5 other publications that we call regional publications that target other parts of the world, like India, Europe, the UK, Middle East, Turkey, and South America.
I see that you've got locations in, India, in the UK, here in the U.S., obviously, and Turkey. Am I right?
That's correct.
And you've got employees there as well.
Correct. We have about 15 employees here in Mobile. This is our head office in Mobile. We have an office in Istanbul, Turkey that we've had now for going on about 8 years, and we have 4 employees there, and also an office in Bangalore, India.
So you dominate, the way I read it, you dominate the communication component of the elevator. Is there a different term than elevator? The lift industry, perhaps, or the anything like that?
Well, across the globe, there are different terms, and in the U.S., elevator is the term that would be the most common term for elevators within a building. In Europe, the term lift is actually more appropriate. So, and there's different terms. VT would be vertical transportation industry. There's also been terms like the building transportation industry. But elevators are elevators, and we cover everything that moves people.
Everything that moves people. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
so it's an escalator as well. It's a moving sidewalk in the airport as well. These are all kind of interrelated.
Absolutely.
And the same company that makes an elevator may also make an escalator and a moving sidewalk.
That's correct.
So I was driving through South Carolina this summer on the way to a family vacation and drove by a big building with a tall multi-story center to it that had Otis on the side. I assume that's the Otis Elevator Company, or at least a part of them. So the point I'm trying to make is there is a very niche market of elevator and anything that moves people, and you guys have gotten in, swung your elbows in a sense, and really dominated that market. Talk to me about what you've learned of niche markets and how to dominate a niche market.
Well, I think to dominate any business or any market, you've got to build relationships in the industry, and that's one thing my grandfather really was a real leader at. He built great relationships around the world, traveled around the world, met people all over the place early in his career, and established great communication with these people, and saw that there was a need for better communication, technical information, training, safety, those type of things. And so we've capitalized on that. We've continued those relationships. My mother's still in the business, and she is well known in the industry. And I've come along and made new relationships as well. I've expanded the business. We really didn't have any other publications when I came in 25 years ago. We mainly just had our core publication, Elevator World. So within the last 15 years, I expanded to have regional publications really targeting the other parts of the world, like India and the Middle East, things such as that.
So the niche market was begun with communication and meeting and creating relationships with influencers in the industry across the nation, so that when, I guess, your grandfather said, I've got an idea, would you subscribe? Would you advertise? There was no question that these people would support him.
Absolutely. And again, most of the people that started out in the publication were his friends. They advertised, they supported it, and many of them are still advertising. Maybe the name of the company has changed, been bought out, but they're still supporting the publication through print, through digital, through all of our forms of media.
So is your advice to anybody out there listening who says, I'd really like to, I've stuck my toe into a niche market, I'd really like to dominate the niche market, is your advice relationships?
It is relationships, and I think niche markets are amazing. I used to have this mindset in the past that the elevator industry and this whole niche market was really kind of corny. But when you realize you have a niche market and you don't have a lot of competition, you realize how blessed you really are. And so if you've got some niche that you're working on or you know of, I would go after it because it's great. You can make a great business and provide for your family well and make great relationships.
So the business began with a magazine, a publication. And then you've since expanded the publications. What other offerings have you released out there to continue to dominate the niche market and perhaps to provide new revenue streams?
Well, I mean, we are a print-centric, very traditional publisher. So we really focus print first. Everything else comes after that. And, we live in a world where everything's digital. So if you launch something today, it would be digital first, and maybe you'd add a print product. So that's kind of the mentality we've kept. But we've added, like I said, the multiple other regional publications. We've added many digital products. We have about 12 different email newsletters targeting different regions and different subject matter. But the biggest add-on to our revenue would be our educational division.
That's what I wanted to get to, is the educational division. It seems like these niche markets allow an extraordinary opportunity for the dominator in the market to educate deeply and continue to further entrench themselves in that market, so that the people who need the education really have only one place to turn to, or a very limited place, but one dominates. What type of education are you selling? And curiously, before you get into that, this email newsletters. And by the way, folks, T runs also Bay Business News. If you're in Mobile, you've likely seen this thing. We're going to talk about this in a moment. His expertise in newsletters has led to the creation of Bay Business News. And again, we'll talk about it in a moment. But the subscription newsletters that you're offering out there, are those paid subscriptions, or are those to keep awareness in front of your viewers?
All free. All of our newsletters are free to sign up and receive. They're just targeted on different regions or different subject matters. We generate revenue, not in all of them, but a number of them we generate advertising revenue.
Advertising revenue. Okay. So the educational component, how do you know what your readers need to know?
Well, most of the time we're working with an experienced person within the industry. A lot of times it'll be what we call an elevator consultant, maybe a guy who has retired from Otis or Kone, a big OEM, who's got a lot of industry experience, and maybe even some specific experience, maybe on traffic engineering or something like that. And so they want to write on that subject matter because there's nothing out there. And so we contract with them just like a big publisher, and we work with them back and forth. We edit the product, they write it, we edit it, and we publish it, and we pay them a royalty. Do they create workshops, in-person workshops? I flipped through your magazine and I see a lot of worldwide events where people are showcasing product. There are a lot of events in our industry, from product-driven events, expos, to conventions, to symposiums. We are involved in a few of them, but that's one of the things we really didn't do early on when we started. My grandfather wanted the publication in our business to be independent, not to be an association, trapped or totally, connected to that association. So we're an independent publisher. We do support a lot of events, and we've recently, in the last 5 years, partnered in doing some small events.
So your grandfather made that decision. He wanted to be independent, not an association. Was it a good decision?
I think it's hard to say. I'm not sure. Sometimes I feel like that it wasn't a good decision because we could have probably capitalized on the event market. I mean, if you look at publishing companies today, even digital revenue is difficult, and so they branch off with a big event division, and they overcome their loss of revenue from regular traditional advertising through events. We haven't been able to really do that because we have such close relationships with all of these associations and event organizers that we don't want to jeopardize those relationships. So that's why the events we are doing are usually partnerships, or they're small, kind of fitting in where somebody missed something.
So the listener who's trying to dominate a niche market, you're giving him or her advice, and you're saying, listen, you've seen this niche market, you see its growth potential, you've got a toe in the water, would you say you should start an event component of this, or stay with your education component of this, or do both?
I think both, really, because it's going to be needed. Depending on what the niche is, events are not going to go away. Sure, we've had problems over the last 18 months with events, and digital things are happening, but absolutely, events are something to look into on the niche side.
When we come back from break, I want to talk about your reader. I want you to tell me who he or she is. I'm guessing it's more male than female, and I want to talk about whether the age of your reader lends himself to the print publication versus the online publication. In other words, if you were to tell him, we're going online, is he still going to read the magazine? We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to What's Working. I'm with Bruce MacKinnon with Elevator World Magazine, and also began Bay Business News here locally, which we'll get into when we get back. This is Cam Marston, and I'm with Cajun Mike of E3 Termite and Pest Control. Cajun Mike, if a homeowner thinks they have termites, do you offer inspections? What about someone buying a new home? Can you come in and take a look and see if there are termites in their new home?
Yeah, basically what we would do on a home above and beyond anyone else is we actually do a thorough inspection. But above that, we will use infrared imaging that will allow us to see problems in the wall and at times can tell us if there's anything going on.
That's fantastic, Cajun Mike. How can people find you?
They can find me at e3pest.com.
That's the letter E, the number 3, pest.com. T. Bruce MacKinnon is the CEO and president of Elevator World magazine. You'll be interested to know that his mother, Risha, is the publisher and editor of the same magazine. And I want to talk to you about working with your mother. I have some experience of that back in the day when we get through this. But first, prior to the break, I said, tell me about your customer. And it is my experience that most publications have a really in-depth knowledge of their customer. So I'm walking through the airport someday and I see somebody sitting down with Elevator World magazine in their lap. Who is that person?
Typically, that's going to be a male, and probably in the mid-50s is our reader. Certainly, our readership is continuing to evolve with our reach and the world being digital. Recently, we launched an entirely new website where all of our content is accessible on our website. You can log in, you can subscribe, you can pay, you can get some free. So that dynamic is obviously going to help expand our reader. But typically, it's a male reader and a man.
And is he a realtor? Is he a commercial real estate developer? Is he a maintenance engineer at an airport? What's his occupation?
Typically, the reader of Elevator World is going to be upper management within the elevator industry. So that would be with a Kone, Otis, ThyssenKrupp, Schindler, and then also the independents, what we call a Bagby, which is here in town, or a Vantage, a smaller independent company. So it could be the owner, technical people within that company, as well as mechanics and field personnel.
So here's a random question. Let's assume I'm building a 5-story residential building. What decisions do I have to make about the elevator that I want to take my residents up and down?
So typically, a contractor is going to be working with an architect and a developer, and then usually, if they're smart, they're going to work with what we call in our industry an elevator consultant. And I mentioned earlier that's a guy that's worked with the Otis, retired, and they have a lot of experience to give advice on how many elevators you're going to need in that building. What's this building going to do? What kind of people is it serving? Is it going to be multi-tenant? Is it just going to be just offices or what? And that determines how many elevators you need. So the mindset of an elevator consultant in helping a developer is it's bad customer service for your customers to be standing around waiting on an elevator to go wherever they need to go. So they want to have good analyzation of the people traffic within the building.
So they've got the analyzation. It sounds a lot like developing a parking lot. You need to know who's going to use it, how many people will be there at once, whether there'll be surges of people coming and going, et cetera. So let's assume I've said, all right, I know this information. I know how many people. I know how many will use it. I guess there are questions on speed. Is there any regulation on how quick the elevator can go up 5 floors in our hypothetical?
There probably is, but I have no idea what that is.
There's got to be a cost. So, you can put one with a chandelier in it. I've seen in some old hotels. You can have a wood inlay, or you can have a tin can that goes up and down. And we're not even talking about, let's say, a cargo elevator that may be in the back of a larger building, all of which goes into the price, right?
Absolutely.
So give me a range. How much does a new elevator, and I want a B-plus elevator in my new residential building, 5-story, how much would one of these things cost? Can you give me a range?
Somewhere between $50,000 to $65,000.
Really? Yeah. So the taller the building, the more expensive the elevator, undoubtedly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. So that's I've never asked how much an elevator costs.
Yeah.
I've always tried to find space on these for the commentaries that I do. You and I have talked about those offline. On the screens in the elevator, that give you the weather and give you the news updates, and I have no idea who to contact about that, and the commentaries are 3 minutes long, and I don't think anything on those screens is 3 minutes long, but let's stop talking about me. You work with your mother. I started my business 20-some-odd years ago in partnership with my mother, and it was both a blessing and difficult at the same time. Talk to me about how the partnership with your mother began and how it's going. Bear in mind, she's going to listen to her boy talk about her.
Sure. I have a great relationship with my mother, and I actually worked with my father early on in my career, and that did not go so well. We had similar personalities, and so that was challenging. So I moved on, went into another business for 6 or 7 years, and then my grandfather was easing towards retirement, and they wanted to talk to me. I'm the only child, and so I listened. I wasn't interested in elevators, thought elevators were terribly uninteresting, and but it looked like an opportunity for me to take a different direction. And so I came on, and really the relationship has been terrific. My mother and I have very different personalities. I'm kind of loud and aggressive and quick to act, and she's kind of slow and methodical. And so we use those differences to bring value to the business. We very rarely have disagreements. And so it's been a fantastic relationship. We've worked together now for 25 years, and I think she's done a great job in transitioning me into the business and her out, and that was not the case with her and her father, my grandfather. It was very difficult. So she's learned from that, and hopefully I have too.
So I was on your website earlier today, and there are I counted 24 people as employees of your company, many of whom are overseas. We talked about those locations. If I were to ask any one of those people, hey, what's it like working for a mother-son duo? What would their answer be? And bear in mind, they're likely going to hear you say this.
I think they would say it's great. We like I say, there's no screaming and fighting and anything crazy going on in the office. It's a very relaxed office. You were there, and our offices are very comfortable and open air and like in a house. So I think our employees really love working at Elevator World, and we treat them fairly. So it's great. As we were stepping into the studio a moment ago, you talked to me about the podcast that you all have, and that a younger generation took hold of that. Is there some reluctance to change not the history of the organization, but you gotta dance with the people that brought you. The people that brought you is a magazine. And is there any hesitancy to get into something new that people my age, perhaps your age, are going, I don't know about this new technology. They got this TikTok thing now, and I don't know that I want to be dancing on that. What was that like? I like to push myself. I like to force myself to learn more. I feel like I'm always reading and pushing myself to learn new things. So I don't think there's any real hesitancy in my team to grow and do different things. I think we have to listen to our industry, to our customers. If they want content delivered more digitally, then we've got to do that. And we're surveying them and asking them, and we're adjusting. We were really one of we actually transitioned to a digital publication very, very early in that transition when print publications were looking to do things digitally. So we have no problem adjusting. So one of the characteristics of a organization that dominates a niche industry is usually an exposed backside, where somebody else can look at them and say, they are not looking at this, and here's my opportunity to kind of get in and replace them. Do you feel like Elevator World has an exposed backside? And if you do, how prudent would you be to tell me right here on the air? Probably is not a good idea. But I'm wondering how you protect your six, as they say in the Air Force. Yeah, I don't think we do, and I think that we have done a good job of developing out content. You have to think about it. We have content. I mean, the world is about content now. So
Yeah.
we have 70 years of elevator content. Nobody can touch that. I can't imagine even a huge publisher coming along and trying to start something to compete with us. They would have to do a lot of work. And as you know, anybody developing content, it takes time and it takes a lot of work. And there's oftentimes not a lot of profit.
Yeah.
So
I can vouch for that.
I mean, I'm not speaking like, nothing bad's going to happen, but, we're constantly evaluating ourselves, trying to do better and trying to serve our industry.
I want to talk to you about Bay Business News, but I want to ask you real quick. Your magazine has a board of directors. Perhaps this is common in magazines. I don't know. I was somewhat surprised to see it on the website. You got a board of directors, 3 of which who live in 1, Italy, 2, Germany, and 3, the Netherlands. What do these people across the world provide you from the board of directors' point of view?
Well, I've never been a big fan of the board of directors setup that we had, but my grandfather was, came from the military, had a lot of structural, ideas, and felt like that if we were going to support an industry, we needed to have people advise us and look at us. And so, so I've grown to respect that and learn from that. And and absolutely, we have representation on our board from all over the world because we represent the entire elevator industry around the world. So I have great friends around the world. I've traveled all over the world many times, and so they bring great advice to us because it's just like anything else. It's impossible to understand the perspective of somebody in another part of the world without really talking to them or asking them what's happening there when you're here in the U.S.
And it's more than just referring to it as an elevator versus a lift.
Absolutely.
A little bit more sophisticated than that.
Sure, the terms are different, but also the codes the codes in the U.S. is called the code, ASME code, and in Europe it's called norms. And so there's different terms and there's also different specifications.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's go to break, and I want to come back and talk about Bay Business News, which was started as a need you perceived in our local marketplace here. And your goal for it initially has been well surpassed, and we're going to talk about why when we come back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston in the studio today with T. Bruce MacKinnon, CEO, President of Elevator World Magazine, as well as Bay Business News. He goes by the name T, and we come back, we'll talk about this hobby that has kind of exploded on him.
A cool thing happened back in 64. That's when Keith Air Conditioning opened their doors.
Remy Halo has been proven to be 99% effective against COVID-19. And now you can have a Remy Halo air purification system installed with 0% financing for 18 months. When it comes to keeping your home comfortable and safe, turn to the names you trust, Keith and Carrier.
Mobile's leading name in comfort since 1964.
License number 83731.
Hey, this is Cam. Thanks for listening, and I hope you're really enjoying the podcast. Do me a favor and search for Cam Marston on your social media outlets and like us or follow us or whatever is the right thing to do. Also, if you know others who'd benefit from the podcast, please forward it on to them and encourage them to listen. If you're so inclined, we'd love your rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Those ratings matter. Finally, don't be a stranger. Email me with your comments, your feedback, your thoughts, your show ideas, whatever. Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. I'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you very much for listening. Now, back to the show. T. Bruce MacKinnon is the CEO and president of Elevator World Magazine. We're going to get into something new now in this fourth segment of the show, and that is his role in Bay Business News, which was started as a hobby, but now is showing up in my inbox every week, and I am scrolling through it every week. T, talk to me about Bay Business News, what it is, where it came from, and we'll get into where people can find it.
Well, Bay Business News is hyper-focused on Mobile and Baldwin County business. That is all that we are covering. I mean, we're writing briefings, picking up briefings from other media and re-editing them on a weekly basis and sending them out to our list through an email newsletter while also then posting it onto our website weekly.
Tell me about subscribers.
So I launched Bay Business News based on a model from within Elevator World, a very successful email newsletter that we have within the elevator industry called Elenet. And I launched Bay Business News with about 1,500 of my personal business contacts. I surveyed about 20 or 25 business owners, asking them if I were to develop a newsletter that covered real estate and finance and all these different things in brief and delivered to them on a weekly basis, would it bring value to them? And all of them said yes. I wish they would have said no. I probably wouldn't have done it, but they said yes. And
be careful what you ask for.
I know it. And and the thing is, I wanted this information myself. I wanted to be able to have information about Mobile and Baldwin County in one place, because even though we're separated by this body of water, we're not really different. We're not going to be a big city because we have this big body of water in between us. So, people who live in Baldwin County come to Mobile and vice versa. So we launched it with 1,500 contacts of my personal contacts, and in less than a year, we're reaching about 5,000 in the email newsletter, and we have we're approaching 4,000 page views to the website per month.
So within a year, you've grown your email newsletter by 3,500 people. That's not too shabby.
Yeah.
That tends to reflect the opportunity or the opening of a niche market that people didn't know they needed. And I'm curious how people, I know they're reading the newsletter, you're educating, you're telling people what's going on, but the reader of the newsletter is hoping to get what? Is it simply awareness? Are they trying to get business leads? Tell me how they're reading it.
Sure. I think there's a couple of variables there. One, I think if you're an astute business person, you want to kind of keep up with a couple of different economic factors in the marketplace. If you're successful and you've got some money, maybe you pay attention to real estate, or, so I felt like there were a number of people who were successful in business that would find a briefing of all those different categories valuable, and it would improve their conversations. It would improve networking, and then there's others that say on the sales side of they're new in a career and they're looking for opportunities to prospect. So somebody starts a new business or opens a new location. Well, Bay Business News will provide that information to you every week in one place.
And it's well edited. It's well written. I put my new video commentary series on there, and immediately after it was released, the newsletter was released over email, got some, 8 or 10 pings from friends of mine who had read it to congratulate me and ask further questions on it. How much content is being submitted to you versus you going out there to hunt for?
Well, that was actually the biggest fear we had was, could we launch this newsletter and have enough content? So I wasn't so worried about would people be interested in reading it and would the list grow and could we maybe even sell advertising? I was concerned, would there be enough good content that would bring value to the reader? Because you don't want to bore people with nothing content. So surprisingly, when we launched it 2 or 3 weeks beforehand with a press release. We immediately were on the media list and started getting press releases. So I would say probably about 70% of the content now is sent to us in a press release form or submission on our website, and then we edit it to our style.
Yeah.
I would like to have more news that is not coming in a press release or coming from a communication director, news that you just wouldn't find anywhere else that we wrote based on a relationship to a small business.
Yeah, so that somebody would reach out to you and say, hey, this isn't going to get major press, but I do want somebody to know about it. Is that you? Is that them coming to you, or do you foresee having I'm using air quotes, pool of reporters out there beating the streets?
Currently, everything's primarily coming to us. We have a couple of freelancers that are looking and searching and contacting and things like that. And we have ideas and plans to expand and do some different things. But primarily, content's coming to us. We're editing it to our style and delivering it to the reader.
Are there things that you simply won't print or won't put in the newsletter? Saying, this is not really who we are. Have you had to veto stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I submitted back in the day, and there's something else I want to talk to you about. Back in the day, I was invited to give a presentation at the $1 Million Round Table, which in my world is like the pinnacle of giving a speech. There were 3,000 people in the room, and I submitted it to a local business publication, and they said, that's not what we do. But I was vetoed for the announcement of the Miss USS Alabama. I was replaced by the announcement of the Miss USS Alabama, and I remember thinking, oh, that stings quite a bit. This might be the pinnacle of my career, and I just got vetoed by a beauty pageant. It still stings, quite frankly. Now, back in the day, I used to travel a lot prior to the COVID times and felt I would come home to Mobile. However, I didn't really feel like I had my feet on the ground, that I was connected to my community. And since COVID erupted, I have been around. I've probably taken 5 flights in the past 18 months, where it used to be 5 a week. So I do feel more connected to the community. I suspect you can relate to that. Your business publication is worldwide. Your communications on a daily basis, I'm guessing, outside of the team that are collected under the offices that you have in Midtown, are with people across the world. But you leave the office every day and say, I live here, but I don't feel connected here. And I'm suspecting, I'm putting words in your mouth, that Bay Business News has given you some connection.
Absolutely. I can hear my grandfather saying that my best friends live across the ocean.
Yeah.
And because he traveled so much within the elevator industry and made friends, around the world in associations and different things, that oftentimes in Mobile, he felt a little detached. He was involved in some local things, as I am. But yes, I felt like Bay Business News would allow me to connect to more local businesses, meet great people like you, Cam. I would have never met you if it weren't for Bay Business News.
Correct.
And so, yeah, I find it fascinating. And, as you get older, you realize that you never stop learning. If the more people you meet, the people that own businesses, work in unique places like we're at right now, the Container, you can learn. And so you got to have an open mind. And so that's really what Bay Business is about, is serving the business community, allowing myself to learn more and others. And where it goes from there, I think can only be good.
So let's give people an opportunity to find the website as well as to subscribe to the website right now. Tell them how to do that.
Sure. They can go to baybusinessnews.com. There you can sign up for the weekly newsletter. You can also submit any news you have. You don't have to have a press release pre-written. You can submit, hey, my business is 25 years old, whatever, send it to us. We'll contact you immediately, write a briefing, and if it's business related to Mobile and Baldwin County, we'll publish it.
BayBusinessNews.com. Folks, I know many of you are driving right now. If you are, just remember that when you pull over, when you get to your next stoplight, I didn't say that, go to BayBusinessNews.com and sign up. It's been a wonderful tool for me. I'm curious, T, as you look into the future, you told me prior to this interview you have 2 children. Do you see this something you'd want them to be involved in?
Well, I think everybody who has their own business wants to see their kids, maybe have some interest in it. I've come from both sides of my family's businesses, my father's and my mother's side, and there were challenges. There were good and bad challenges, but certainly I think one of my children might find an interest in the elevator world.
You've told me a little bit about them. They sound like remarkable young ladies, and I'm eager to speak to one in November or December for an upcoming show that we have because of their unique skills. Is this something you'd be willing to share?
Absolutely.
Right now, would you be willing to tell people what they do?
Well, sure. So I have 2 daughters, one 25, one 21. Both of them are professional ballerinas with the New York City Ballet. They have both been in New York since they were the age of 14, and they are living their dream, dancing and getting paid to live in New York City. So it's wonderful to see that and watch them do that. It was terribly difficult to let them leave so early.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But they're it's just like an artist or anything like that. There's this passion and love that no money can bring you.
Yeah.
And so I often joke that they make just enough money to live in New York City, but it doesn't matter.
That's wonderful. I last year about this time, I was looking for a ballerina to interview to talk to them about the Nutcracker. This was going to be kind of a holiday-themed thing. And I couldn't, you just don't know a lot of professional ballerinas, and most of them don't take your call. Hi, my name is Cam Marston in Mobile, Alabama. You're a professional ballerina in New York City. Can I talk to you for an hour? They're like, this is creepy. Yeah. But I hope to get one of his daughters on the show to talk about the Nutcracker and being a professional ballerina, because it's an occupation that fascinates me. T, real quick before we wrap up here this segment, I want to ask you if the news that I'm about to share would be worthy of Bay Business News. And that news would be, we're going to host a succession planning workshop on November the 4th, beginning at 4:30 p.m. at the Community Foundation of South Alabama. I'll be one of 4 presenters that day. I'll be talking about the mental processes of succession planning, how to prepare yourself to leave your business. I'll be paired with Mark Salyers and Jamie Sandifer of Sandifer Wealth Management that will be talking about the money side of succession planning, as well as Rick Miller, who is a succession planning coach who works with both the business owner or leader as well as his or her successor. So, hypothetically, would that be something that would make the publication?
It's absolutely perfect for Bay Business News.
Yeah. So, folks, remember what you've heard, because it was not hypothetical. That's going to be going down on November the 4th, starting at 4, content on 4:30. And a reception beginning at 5:30, and you'll see it again in Bay Business News here coming up shortly. So I can see the value of this publication, and I will definitely submit this in written form through the website so that it gets some attention out there. Final words, final comments for you, T, on Elevator World, Bay Business News, little drops of wisdom you wish to share with your friends and colleagues out there in listener world who are leaning forward, waiting for the most priceless information they've ever heard right now.
Don't think what you're doing doesn't matter, because it matters. And I used to think the elevator industry was the corniest thing ever, but it's literally a secret industry with phenomenal people. And I'm sure there's a number of other industries out there like that. So invest in it and see where it takes you.
T. Bruce MacKinnon is the CEO, President, Elevator World Magazine, as well as the publications that support it. He is also the leader behind Bay Business News here in Mobile, baybusinessnews.com. T, thank you. This has been delightful.
Absolutely enjoyed it, Cam.
We'll come back in a little bit with final comments. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. This is Cam Marston with Cajun Mike of E3 Termite and Pest Control. Cajun Mike, houses on pilings can have termites eat their way up inside the piling and enter the house. The homeowner never knows about it, but your company offers protection. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Cam. Basically, what we have designed is a program, and what we do is we will actually drill to the center of the pilings and put a product in the center that will stop the termites from coming up into the home.
Stucco exteriors as well?
Correct.
How can people find you, Cajun Mike?
They can find me at e3pest.com.
That's the letter E, the number 3, pest.com.
Hey, this is Chuck Thus. When I'm not hosting chart-topping podcast Warriors Unmasked or coaching athletes to show up as the best version of themselves, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
That's all we got for you today. Find me online and social media where you can see how we plan these shows. You can shoot me ideas for guests. You can shoot me your feedback to the different shows that we have. I'm all over social media at the traditional social media sites under the name Cam Marston or Cam Marston 1, the numeral 1, because some person claimed the name Cam Marston before I did on these social media sites and is unfriendly and unwilling to yield it, though they don't use it anymore. Perhaps that's the focus of another show. I think he's up in South Carolina somewhere. So find us online at these social media places. All the shows are available as podcasts. Go to what'sworkingcam.com. Again, what'sworkingcam.com. There you can find the links to the podcasts where they're distributed, and you can go to those podcasts and subscribe there, and I hope you will. If you have any feedback for me, thoughts, ideas, criticisms, praises, accolades, truly remarkable compliments to share, you can share them directly with me. You don't have to worry about going through my gatekeeper. I want to hear those directly. Cam@cammarston.com. Again, that's the email address, cam@cammarston.com. We'd love to hear what you think and any ideas that you have. Show is produced by John Thompson with Eyeon Digital, EYEON Digital. And every time I say that, it means he's edited another show, preventing him from drinking beer on Horn Island. We'll have another show next week, everybody. Have a good week.